Welcome to the Real Life Overtime Podcast, the place where the members of the Real Life Ministries sermon team go deeper into the weekend sermon. Watch them as they unpack, unfold, and unravel the weekend sermon like never before. So fasten your seatbelts, hit play, and join us for Real Life Overtime, where every episode is an adventure and this sermon doesn't end on Sunday.
Hey, I want to welcome you to the Overtime Podcast. My name is Chris Short, and sitting with some amazing guys, each of our campus pastors, Gabe Cleve, Hayden Campus Pastor, Jim Blazin, North Campus, and Blake Whiteman, Coeur d'Alene Campus. And this podcast is one of the opportunities we get to kind of just dialogue the things that were spoken at each of the campuses from this weekend. And this week, our topic is Jesus is Fulfillment. And just got a glimpse of each of the sermons and some of the notes, and just think there were some real themes that we can unpack today. That's kind of my hope, is we can kind of go a little deeper, maybe some of the follow-up conversations, lobby conversations. This is always kind of a special chance to do that. So maybe we'll just start with just a little glimpse of some things that you guys got a chance to kind of unpack. Give us kind of the highlights from your message. Maybe Blake, we'll start with you.
Yeah. This week I would say on the front end, I was super thankful for, I would say, our team and how we go about a message. And so kind of did some changing based on some of the direction, actually some of you guys. So ended up having the conversation be on fulfillment, which was great. I know originally we'd had a conversation that it was going to be more on the fulfillment of prophecy, but having heard a lot of really cool feedback on our team, we broadened it. And so the message this week for us was how Jesus is fulfillment in 3 different areas. The first one was fulfillment of prophecy, and got the chance to share how unique that is and awesome that is from Old to New Testament, tying the story of God together. In a similar thread, I think, Gabe, this is from you, that Jesus is, the fulfillment of the law, which is the promises and, the story of God. And we talked about some of those instances and how he brings fruition to that, and which kind of led us to the last point, which, was more personal, is that Jesus wants to be the fulfillment of, our lives. And what does that look like? And what does it mean to be abundantly full of life that Jesus offers? And that comes from who Jesus is and what he's done, and sacrifice on the cross, and the person of the Son of God and his words and his ways. And so we got the chance to talk about that a little bit and invite that into our Christmas this year. What would it look like for the abundant life to be that which we celebrated and who Jesus is? So lots of fulfillment stuff, some cool stories that came with it, but that's kind of where we went this week.
Sweet, thanks, Blake.
That's good.
Yeah.
Jim, how about you?
Yeah, we took the same basic track where we talked about fulfillment of prophecy, number 1, but then number 2, what I did is I took Isaiah 9:6 and I kind of broke it out, and I talked about the fact that the very first 2 things that Isaiah prophesies about, that he's the child and then the Son of God, relating to his identity, and I tied that to prophecy. And then the second part was the wonderful counselor, mighty God, Prince of Peace, and so forth. We talked about how the implications of that in our own lives, so that he's the fulfillment of the needs of our soul in these ways. And then lastly, the third part was that he's the fulfillment of our future, because so often at Christmas, we get the fulfillment of prophecy, and this is the baby in the manger. But as we look at Christmas and some of the anxious things that we have to deal with, some of the familial challenges we have, relational things, the expectations, sometimes anxiety can be high. And so we talked about, if he's the same yesterday as he is today and he will be tomorrow, then we can really have a appropriate expectation on what's going to happen at Christmas.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, I think we were pretty synced up on the messages that we preached across the campuses. We took the same approach, the 3 fulfillment areas of fulfillment that Jesus came. Prophecy being the first one, and we introduced kind of the wise men into the story, right? And I just said my tagline, the overall bottom line of the message. I just kept on asking people, what are you looking for? And what you look for, you're most likely going to find. The wise men didn't come just because they randomly saw a star in the east and said, hey, we should go follow that star. They were actually looking for it. And I think it was based off of the experience that Daniel brought in hundreds of years ago over as the chief of the Magi, the chief of the magicians or the wise men, along with the prophecies that God gave him specifically. So these wise men from the east had this knowledge and this understanding of the stars, but also this prophecy of this Messiah. And so when those two things came together, they were already looking for this. So they ended up finding exactly what they looked for, and it was the fulfillment of this prophecy. And so I just kept on asking, what are you looking for this Christmas season? What you look for, you're going to find. And we talked about the cool factor of the fulfillment of prophecies, right? And the probability of Jesus fulfilling all these prophecies. Some scholars will say 48 to 60 prophecies, major prophecies that he fulfilled overall, with the kind of the minor prophecies over 300. And the probability of that is just astronomical.
Right.
In fact, it's impossible unless he's God. Which is what we talked about week 1. And so just making much of God and going, there's only one way that this could be the fulfillment of prophecy if Jesus is God. Fulfilling the law, it really was the gospel. It really was, again, reminding our people of Jesus lived the life that we couldn't live. He followed the 613 laws perfectly, which we can never do. Paul says the law was always meant to remind us or show us our sinfulness, never to bring us to salvation and remind us that we need a Savior. And so Jesus fulfilled it. He lived it. And so not only did he live the life we couldn't live and fulfilling that, but he died the death that we deserved and fulfilling the sacrificial system that the Old Testament points to. And so just a really cool kind of picture of Jesus. And then same thing, Blazin. You said fulfill our future. Blake, you said fulfill our lives. That's what I talked about. Jesus wants to fulfill you. And John 10:10 talks about that, right? The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But I've come that you may have life and have it to the full. So what does it mean to have a full life? Does it mean a tree full of Christmas presents? That's not bad. I don't think that's what a full life is. Is the full life gaining more and having more the American dream? I don't think so. I think it's not bad, but the full life is a life that is full of Jesus and his promises of who we are. And so Jeremiah 29:13 says, if you seek me, you will find me if you search for me with all your heart. And so I challenge our people this year, search for Jesus. Like, instead of searching for presents and stuff, and even if it's apart from Christmas, fulfillment in your job, fulfillment in your marriage. I said my wife's job isn't to complete me and fulfill me. Only Jesus can do that. My kids can't do that. My job can't do that. My wife can't do that. Nothing can do that other than Jesus. And so really challenge our people to turn to him and find fulfillment in him this season.
So cool. Yeah, and I just echo, it seems like there really was a real neat theme of some of those similar fulfillments that we focused on in the message. And man, just that is the cool part of just the team that comes together to look at God's word and go a little deeper. So that's just so cool. One little aspect that I focused on that I think was interesting, similar to what you talked about, is what are you expecting in the season? I spent some time just setting up, what are expectations that we bring into the holidays and to Christmas specifically. Seems like the bar is high, and it's like you got to have the perfect meal, the perfect gift, and all of these expectations that are almost insurmountable, almost impossible to kind of meet, which is like, and then if that's your goal and you meet all the perfect expectations of the right gift, the right, decorations and meal, whatever, you come to the end of the season and you're like, it's over now. You put it away, you box it up.
Here comes Easter.
Yeah, it's like it feels hollow, and that's kind of the term that was just resonating in my mind is hollowness versus fullness, and like, you'll never be disappointed if Christ is the center of Christmas. It is full, and then it's just the beginning of your reminder of, not the beginning, reminder of your season that Christ came as King, and that changed our life, and that real fulfillment leads to so much in our life. Maybe let's talk about this piece for a second. I was just thinking of some of the themes that were spoken through it. Is, we talked about the law and the prophets and the fulfillment that he completed, that he brought, and he didn't come to abolish it, but to fulfill it. How does that, those Old Testament truths, and really the whole Bible, but the Old Testament truths, what kind of confidence does that give us for living today? Like, what, someone that's listening, like, what does that do? Because you could just look at it as that's Old Testament. What does that do as we look to our faith now and our faith in the future? Thoughts on that?
You mean as far as like fulfilling the law and what Jesus did?
The impact of Jesus fulfilling the law and the prophets. Yeah. What does that do in our faith today?
Yeah.
Like, how does that impact our living it out?
Well, what I think is really cool is, you have the law, the 613 laws. Then you have the 10 Commandments. I can't, even follow the 10 Commandments perfectly, let alone the 613. So what I think is so cool is when we say Jesus fulfilled the law, he lived it out perfectly. Just memorizing the 613 laws is hard enough, let alone following them. And so I just think of how cool it is that Jesus perfectly lived out God's holy standards. So God didn't, a perfect and holy God can't set a standard that's anything less than perfect and holy. So there's this standard that God sets of like, this is holiness, this is righteousness, and you can't follow it. And the law was always meant, Paul says in Romans 3, it was always meant to show us our sinfulness, right? And so what I think is so impactful for me when thinking about Jesus' life and how he lived it out is he did the very thing that no matter how long I lived and no matter how hard I try, I could never, ever do. So to me, that brings such a freedom of not saying the law is not important anymore. It's just saying, but now I can just place my faith in Jesus, that he lived it out perfectly, and I don't have to rely on my own efforts to gain favor or acceptance or righteousness with God anymore. Like, Jesus did it for me. And so, and then along with that, then, becoming the perfect sacrifice that we know, the atonement piece. And so he did what I couldn't do. He also did what I should have done, like I deserved in the cross. And that great exchange is always an amazing reminder for me of Jesus.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about covenant relationship. Like you mentioned 10 Commandments, and one level of that is these are the terms that God lays out for us to have a relationship with him in a covenant. And then what I couple together when I think about fulfillment is the fact that in his intelligent design of creating all of us, he put his DNA in us that we would desire to have the very thing that his covenant relationship offers us. Yeah. If you set sin aside, we're hardwired for when we look at fulfillment, like that he fulfilled everything. It isn't just that he took the legal law and fulfilled that, but then he intimately meets something in each and every one of us that he put in there before creation, and there's this connection relationally, and it's so intimate in the fulfillment. That anyway, that's what's rolling around in my head when I think about that. Yeah,
that's good. It's funny. The covenant popped into my mind too. Just thinking in through that piece, and Jesus is the fulfillment of the law. It comes in a time of, at least I think, in biblical history, to where God is continuing to evolve and grow his covenant with his creation, with his people. And we say that early on, and you work through Abraham and Noah and the original covenants, in some of those pieces. Moses puts it on display, and each covenant, as it goes more, God has part, we have part. And God owns most of the parts to begin with and progressively gives us more. But to specifically answer your question, how do we have a confidence in that? God has always been doing his part well. And when we can't, right, which is the fulfillment of the law, God has always made promises for redemption and restoration when we fall short. Right, the promise of Noah and creation to say, I'm never going to destroy it again, even when you guys get a little sideways. And then he starts to offer signs of the covenants throughout creation and throughout history, right? And, Jesus himself as Christmas spoiler, right? God with us, being in himself a sign of his continued covenant relationship to bring fullness of his intent from the beginning, I think gives massive confidence to say that God is continuing to work the same story he's always been telling. And he plays the part that only he can every time. And so to show us that this covenant relationship between God and man can be accomplished through Christ alone, God himself is the only way in which that's accomplished, is massively confidence building in myself to know that we have a part, and as you said with the law, right, it's always intended, I believe, that God gave us the law for us to truly see who he is in his character and person and intent and ourselves, to learn what's right and wrong and good and bad, but at the same time to experience forgiveness and grace and reconciliation, to understand if I miss and I sin, right, that's not the end of me and that's not who I am, and God still draws us to himself and he'll complete the part that we can't. So that's God being God, right? He's him. He's doing what he does, and he continues to show it again in that way, which leads me to to continue to choose to have hope and belief that God's going to do what he does, even if I miss it or we get caught up on nuance or whatever, that Jesus goes, man, I do my part super well. And then even the next part of that relationship, right, where God says, hey, I'm not only with you, but I'm in you, or the gift of the Holy Spirit, that then I'll be all with you and we do this together. So super confidence building to know that God does what God does. And that he just invites us in a partnership to see that and believe that. So,
but the partnership piece, right? Because that's good. The partnership, God extends this to us, right? Like God offers this to us. And in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5, Jesus says, "You search the Scriptures, believing that they will give you eternal life. But the Scriptures point to me." But then he says, "But you would not receive this.
Right.
You would not receive this." And so, the most well-known verse in all of Scripture is John 3:16, right? For God, he gave his one and only Son. There's a gift that God gave. Whoever would believe in him would not perish. People, the gift is offered to everyone. I think of like a gift can be sitting underneath the tree, and that gift can be for you, but it will sit underneath that tree until you receive it, right? That gift is a good gift, but until I say, okay, I'm going to receive this gift, it's just sitting there. It's yours, but it's yours to take. You have to unwrap it. You have to receive it to be your own. And so this time of year, I just think about like this gift that God has offered to humanity that's just sitting underneath the tree. And people are missing it. And it's like, there's a gift right there. You've missed it. Like, when you're a kid and it's like your parents save you the last gift. And it's like the special gift and you just missed it. And it's like, you'd be foolish to go, well, I'll just leave it there. I mean, it's an awesome gift. I'm just going to leave it there, even though it's probably the one thing that I asked for this year that I'm going to, And there's this gift that God, you've missed it. You have not received it.
And it's not just a gift. It is the perfect gift.
It's not. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
It's not the gift that. It's not just a good gift. It is the one and only thing that you need and that you want.
What you need, yes.
Yeah, and it's just this amazing thing that I think people are leaving unwrapped, or maybe refusing or having a hard time understanding that gift is actually for that. Well, that gift couldn't possibly. You don't know what I've done. Well, no, it says for anyone who believes, anyone who receives this. It's not like for the elite. It's not for those that Santa knows if you've been good or bad. It's like, no, Jesus doesn't care, right? Like, it's like he knows that all of us are bad and wicked, but yet he says that gift is still for you. Unwrap it. See what's in it. It'll change your life.
That makes me think of, in this whole conversation, I think just points to the goodness of our God. And I was just in study for this message. So it was just so faith building to look back at all of God's work through mankind, and to know that it wasn't an accident. Like he had intention and purpose, and the prophecies are just part of that. It's like not just part of it. It's like, he knew all along that Jesus was the plan, that he was the fulfillment that we needed. We couldn't pay for the law, the prophets. To me, the ark is just it brings so much confidence that. Where I'm at right now, it's not a surprise, not an accident, and maybe that's the last part we could talk about a little bit would be, I had quite a few conversations in the lobby. I'm guessing you probably did too, as you talk about fulfillment and people are going, but here's the struggle that I'm in the middle of. And so for those that are in the church or listening in who are, my life doesn't feel full right now. I don't feel the fulfillment of Jesus working. I'm not sure where he is. Like, what would be some encouragement? What would be some counsel? What would you point to for that person who's struggling with where's God at right now?
I addressed kind of some of this. I only said it in one service, which was weird, but there's people that say, I tried Christianity out and it just didn't work for me. And my statement to my rebuttal to them is, then you either missed what Christianity is all about, or you had some preconceived notions, or you didn't try hard enough, or whatever it is. Christianity isn't something that works for some people and doesn't work for other people. And so I believe that no matter if you're going through something that's hard, something that's challenging, something that's sad, something that's life-threatening, whatever it is, if Jesus truly is the fulfillment, if we truly believe that he came to give us life and life to the full, no matter what that circumstance is, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying Jesus is going to take away your diagnosis or take away your broken relationship or take away your financial struggles or whatever that is. But if those things are what we think of, okay, if I would just have more money, if I would just have that relationship, if I would just have my spouse back, if I would just have my health, whatever that is, then I would be full.
Right.
No, you wouldn't. those things are good and those things are okay to desire. But you can have a health, you can have a marriage, you can have money, you can have all these things, and your life can still be hollow and empty. And so I'm hoping our people this year go, I asked this question, it's kind of a tongue twister. If what you thought would fill you was fulfilled, would you actually be full?
I use that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I use that too. It was good.
And really, the answer is no.
Right.
I mean, it's the whole illusion of this one thing is gonna be what's gonna bring me contentment. Contentment's a choice.
I read from U2's War album. I read the verse 3 of "I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For," and that was really. I mean, it sticks with people because he's talking about all the things he's experienced, and yet at the end of it, he still has a hungry heart. Our soul is still thirsty. And I think that really connected with people to go, man, the stuff that I've gone after, the stuff that I've tried to fill in the hole here that only God can provide, the fulfillment that God offers us in the perfect gift.
Right.
Man, if people, it doesn't, if you've lived 30 years on planet Earth, I mean, like, you're pretty much starting to get the idea that all the stuff offered you is hollow. It doesn't go anywhere. And, by the time you get older, it's just more and more a reality. And for some people, they have that aha. It's like, when this is probably more after the first of the year, but like once it's tarnished and once the dust is on it and once I've already moved past, and I've got the bills to pay for, to
have to pay.
To have to pay.
Yeah.
It's a big letdown, right?
Yep.
So.
One of the message or the passage we used this week was John chapter 6. It kind of jumps off John 10, right? To come to give life to the full and abundant. And, in other places, Jesus, his own words are that he's a wellspring of life that'll never end. And so John chapter 6, 26 to 36 is what we looked at. And Jesus is addressing the disciples in the crowds, and he's talking about that which fulfills in the form of the fact that he's the bread of life. And so he makes a couple very specific statements, which is right in line with what you guys are saying. And he's speaking to the crowds, and even his guys, and revealing what truth is. And he says, you're looking for me, but the reason why you're looking for me, and I'm summarizing, is for the wrong reason. And so he says, you've missed me because you haven't seen the miraculous in what I've done, meaning who I really am and what's going on. But you chase after me because you had some bread. You had a little bite to eat. You had that which you believe satisfies now, and you're missing it. And then he has this dialogue, and they ask him, well, then, in so many words, what is it, and what do you mean, and what is it that fulfills? Because bread fulfills, right? Like, we don't understand. You did an amazing thing, but we're missing it. Like, help us understand. What is this thing that we desire for? And Jesus goes on to help them see that even if they look back in time and talk about Moses. Well, Moses gave us bread, and Jesus says, it wasn't Moses that actually gave it to you, it's my Father in heaven. And if you would really see that which fulfills or provides, then you'll see what I'm talking about. There's this beautiful statement right before Jesus makes a significant statement, and they're on board, and they're like, we want that. So explicitly they say, give us this always. We want that which is true. And then Jesus says, I am the bread of life.
Yeah.
And those who see and come to understand who I am will never go hungry, they'll never go thirsty. And he makes the statement of like, you can be fulfilled in ways that you think will fill you, but we all know that they don't fill.
Right. Yep.
And it's Christ with us that will always fulfill us, no matter the things we have or the places we go or the situations we're in, right? Again, amazing Christmas spoiler. God is with us is the only thing that fulfills. But he ends it with this in verse 38 or 36. And he says, although you have seen me, some of you still do not believe. And so the opportunity is there's a gift that's offered, right? Like you mentioned. And God can do what he does. And Jesus, the gospel has been shared and we have the opportunity, right? But some will still not choose to believe it. And then gets a significant statement. There's so much more that goes into it, which I think is beautiful. But how do we encourage people to actually feel like they have fulfillment? It's always back to the fact that it's Jesus. And how do you see that and believe that wherever you are? So
So good.
It's a good question.
Just makes me think of how easy it is to focus on Colossians to hollow and deceptive philosophies from, the earthly traditions and the spiritual realm. There's so many distractions. There's an enemy who wants to keep us from, true life. And even when we start to take steps into, Christianity and we have the wrong expectations, those expectations can really hurt us if we're expecting a life free of challenges and trials, and you're thinking, hey man, I'm a believer now. Shouldn't I? You've accepted the wrong gospel. If you thought that that's going to be a life that's only beauty and perfection on this earth, right? It's like it's on this earth, which I think is the point of all of it. Is don't expect we won't have trials. Just know who's on the throne. That He's the good shepherd that's going to lead us through it all. Any last thoughts? Super good discussion. Yeah, and to me, that's the encouragement through all this is if we know who He is and what He's done through all of time, we can have confidence in the forever, which is, to me, I just want to read one more time, what is the promise to come? What is the hope that we have? If we can know that He fulfilled the law and the prophets and that He came to fulfill, the justice that was required in the atonement, can we have confidence in Revelation 21? He who is seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Write this down, for these are trustworthy and true statements. To me, that's the God we serve. And that's the God of, it's not just the Christmas spirit and Christmas season, that's the beginning, Emmanuel, God with us. That's the confidence we have. Man, so cool.
That's good.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Awesome discussion.
Good deal.
Hey, I want to thank you for joining us this week on the Overtime Podcast. Want to let you know we're going to have just a few weeks off. We'll be kicking back off in 2025 as our staff has a few days off through the holidays. But just looking forward to a new series as we kick off the new year and hoping you'll just join us, be with us. Don't forget to check out the resources on realliferesources.org. Also, we launched the new Real Life Ministries app this week. If you haven't downloaded that, you can see all the different messages from different campuses, tools, a whole bunch of tools for your spiritual growth in the new year. Just would challenge you to check those out. But until next time, we'll see you